Hey guys, Rumblysuperset here, back again, this time doing a Bros with Pros with Iraqizorro, one of the best laners in my opinion in the Halcyon Fold. How's it going, man?
Going good, man. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. It's a really big honor.
Yeah, for me too as well. So
like I have a lot of people like been asking me when I started this series, which I started a while back, but just haven't got a chance to continue it. But this is the next episode. People were asking like, when are you gonna get Iraqizorro? And it's like I'm trying. It's just right now the competitive scene. If you guys don't know, like these guys work really, really hard. So getting the schedules to match with my own as well just makes it even more hard to get these episodes to actually be recorded. So
yeah,
I thank all you guys. I thank all you guys for the patience too for these episodes.
No, yeah, definitely thank you guys for your patience. It just took us a very long time to actually match our schedules. Most of the time I've been just busy with preparing for seasons or actually playing the seasons or traveling or something of that sort, so it's been hard.
Right. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get straight into the questions here. I have, for the audience, I have like 10 of my own, and then I'm gonna go ahead and refer to the questions that were shown on Twitter when I announced it. But my first question is, how do you draft as a laner?
How do you draft as a laner? More in solo queue, like unranked, and just from your perspective?
I would say, I guess the hardest part would be more so like a solo queue.
I would say mostly it's... So when I'm solo queuing personally, I tend to draft what I want to practice actually. But if you're not trying to do that, you're not just trying to practice certain heroes, you're trying to draft the best thing possible, I would look at the comps as the draft goes on. What characters are being picked on your side, what characters are being picked against you. That's probably the most obvious thing you should do. And then understanding hero matchups works really well when it comes to that. So like, for an example, if you're playing against a Celeste or something that uses skill shots, picking something that has a lot of mobility like Gwen or Vox is really beneficial for you. Or if your team composition is looking to push early game, matching that in the lane so that you can have pressure in lane is a good idea. Or if you're trying to just like even the balance on your team and going for late game, that works too. But it's just understanding the strengths of the characters and the comps that are being already drafted, and so on, picking something for yourself. And I would say the most important thing is try to always get yourself in a good situation. Don't overthink it to put yourself in a bad situation and then you're not able to perform on the character you pick, because it's just really hard playing it against these certain characters, or it's really hard for you as a person or as a player to play in general. So just think about that too. Awesome.
All right, so the next question, this is one I actually struggle myself because I'm a subsidiary kind of lane mainer here, but how to maintain CS throughout the match, specifically the late game.
Right, I mean that's something that a lot of people struggle with, even sometimes in the pro scene, to be honest. And I think the idea is that as the game goes on, early on, everyone is doing their roles. Like you're in lane, the jungle is in the jungle, Roamer playing his role. So like it's really easy to CS and really easy to remember to go to the wave and clear it. But as the game goes on and as the team like the game develops to more team fighting and more objective focused and just trying to win the team fights to get a turret or a Kraken and so on, you start forgetting about thinking about the wave and going up to the lane and clearing it. So that's the main reason for why it happens that people CS numbers fall off late game. So it starts with reminding yourself. You need to keep reminding yourself constantly that there is a wave up there. You need to continue farming it until you get to full items. Otherwise, you could possibly put yourself behind of the other enemy team's laner. And one thing to note is that because during the late game it's unsafe to be alone, you definitely don't want to go up there and do it by yourself. So either ping your team to come up and have your team around you when you're doing it, or there's something really important going down there, it's fine to miss a wave or a few CS up there if you're gaining something much more beneficial out of it.
Okay. My next question is, how do you build? So like throughout the match, what are you looking for as far as how are you deciding what items to get?
Right. I mean, obviously that's very character dependent. First, the character you're playing. Second, the characters you're playing with, and third, the characters you're playing against. But I would say, I guess something that I could give that is generic, try to look at your comp is objective. Your comp's objective. Is it to dive in on one character and try to burst it really hard? Is it trying to sustain and kite back and like kind of prolong the team fight? Try to understand the win condition for your team and build accordingly. For an example, if I were to be playing Ringo and then I had a Koshka on my team and another roamer that just really wants to dive, I'm going to prioritize mobility by getting boots, and then I'm going to prioritize high burst, like going maybe Sorrow Blade Monocle or even a Tension Bore or Tornado Trigger. I'm not going to go into a breaking point because I just want to kill a target really fast. I think that's the most generic, really good advice that I can give for like all sorts of characters.
This is going to be a good episode. I'm already learning a lot. But all right, so my next question is when to push and freeze lane.
That one is really tough because like it has so many different situations and so many factors that go into it. But it's really, again, it's about your game knowledge, understanding what is exactly going on in the game, and some of the factors that go into freezing the wave or pushing it are things such as, are you stronger than the enemy laner? What is your matchup exactly? What is your team trying to do? Do you have a shop advantage? So, and to go into details a little bit, let's say I have a matchup with a character that's really good at pushing the lane wave, and against a character that is really bad at farming under turret. It doesn't have good last hitting underneath the turret. Then that's one situation that I'm going to be looking to push the wave into the turret as much as possible to gain a CS lead. Another situation is if my team is trying to play aggressive, for an example, we have a Koshka in the jungle, he's just trying to wreak havoc in the jungle, and because I know that, I'm going to try to push the lane as much as I can so that I match the aggression and that we're all on the same page, so that if my Koshka is in the enemy jungle, the laner can't rotate on her and then 3v2 her or something like that. If the laner does that while I have the wave pushed up, one, he's going to lose a lot of CS, two, I'm going to be able to rotate at the same time. So it's dependent on situations like that, and it's a more deep, it's a lot more deep subject. So I hope those quick advices can help with that.
Yeah. All right, so like this is one too that I kind of struggle with as a laner. Like I tend to find, you kind of mentioned Koshka, is when you have a really high burst enemy jungler, and then he comes to gank you. Like how do you survive those ganks from that such a high burst? Like Koshka, Kestrel, Taka. Like how do you go around that?
I mean, the easiest, most obvious thing to do is actually to pick up some defense, specifically such as against characters such as Koshka and Taka. Just picking up a light shield and then eventually building it into a kinetic shield is one of the best strategies to do against these characters, because it limits their capabilities to perform their win condition. So it starts with that, or like that's one part of it. Another, when it comes to ganking specifically, or ganks, having some vision a little bit, like some mines around the bushes if you can, or if your roamers with you, try to ask them to have flares so that when you're trying to push away, for an example, you can flare the bush and then you're safe to push it. And other than that, try to learn how the junglers move. If you understand how the junglers move, then you can almost always predict when they're going to be in lane. And when you're going to predict and think and maybe guess they're up there, you can just play safe. It's fine to lose a CS or two. It's a lot better than to die. And yeah, it's just understanding like the different characters where they are on the map, getting some defense, trying to have vision, and just playing smart, really. Yeah.
Okay, and then the next one is this is kind of one I don't really know too much about because I don't really see it ever used. But when is getting a husk ever a good choice?
Husk, there hasn't been too many good choices as of recent, and that's the reason why you don't see it too much. It's essentially all about, if you're going up against a team that has very high burst and you don't need to get other items, like there isn't a better item for you to get, then it's a good item to go into. Let's say, for an example, I'm a laner who doesn't need 4 offensive items. I'm getting only 3 offensive items, and then I picked up my Aegis because I need a reflex block, let's say for an Atlas. And then other than that, I don't really need some armor because I see the enemy team is weapon power dealer, doesn't have a lot of damage. but their CP damage dealer has a lot of burst. So now I have the Aegis, I don't need any more offensive items, I'm going to go into the Husk. It's very situational cases like that Husk becomes worth it.
Yeah.
Slumbering Husk, but other than that, they're generally there's generally a better item to pick up than Slumbering Husk.
Right. That's what it seems like, yeah. All right, so the next one is starting items in general. So I kind of see, like, as meta shifts, you know, I've actually been seeing a lot more of like Eulogy showing up lately for laners. Is that something that's pretty common in the weapon power builds?
Yeah, I mean,
right now?
for the characters that are looking to go into a poison shift first, for an example, it's really common because it just gives you the sustain. It gives you a little bit of weapon power so you can CS, and then it builds perfectly into your build path. But as far as general starting items, I think you always probably want to pick up one defensive item, one offensive item, and then so you have more gold to pick up 2 more potions. I think that should be the standard for anyone who doesn't quite understand the game fully, doesn't know when to push the limits. I would say that's like a safe path. Pick up one offensive item, one defensive item like a light armor or light shield, and that way you have better trading, you're a little bit safer in lane, because if you get ganked, like we talked, you have a little bit more defense to survive it, and then you have 4 potions to spend instead of 2, so you can stay in lane a little bit longer.
Okay. The next question is how to build defense as a laner. You kind of already briefly went over this, but I think more specifically, like when to prioritize a reflex block, or maybe should you prioritize getting light shield first and, you know, go that route first.
Right.
When should you pick those up?
I mean, it is very situational, like most things. I would say what's most common right now, because every team goes for weapon power carry, 1 CP carry. What's very common is getting your core offensive items, then building into a reflex if you're weapon power because you need it for the Atlas. Or even if you're not a weapon power, you're going up against a character such as Koshka, you just need the reflex. And then what will most people do is if they need the armor, like the weapon power carry on the enemy team is threatening, then they'll pick up a light armor, continue building their core offensive items, and then start building into either a metal jacket or an Aegis from that point, to the point you have a reflex and a light armor. And which one to go for is just dependent on how the team fights are going and how the game is going, which of the 2 carries that are on the other team that is more threatening to you, and try to determine that, then try to build the defensive item accordingly. There are cases when you don't need a reflex block, even if you're a weapon carry and the enemy team hasn't gotten an Atlas yet. So, like, let's say you're playing against a Taka, and then you are a weapon carry, they don't have an Atlas, so you don't need the reflex. Or even if you're a CP carry, they don't have something like Koshka or Glaive, you don't need the reflex. At that point, you can skip that item for a little bit, and if you think it's more beneficial to go into the kinetic shield first, then you can do that and eventually finish into an Aegis, and then you're going to have the reflex block for late game. So that's also something that you could do depending on the situation.
Awesome. And then the last question I have is the common lane tactics and strategies for like some of like the newer beginner type of players.
That's too broad of a question, but I would say understanding your lane matchups, it all starts with that. With it comes most of the tactics and the strategies that you can do, like how to trade, when to move forward, when to move backwards. It all starts with the matchups. There are a lot of tricks you can do with the wave, and understanding the wave management better. And one advice I can give about that is that when I started, like when I wanted to really learn it, I just went into practice and I kept hitting minions and then kept watching minions and like just really tried to understand how they behave, so that I could manipulate the waves accordingly in the actual game. So a lot of tricks go on with that. So like for an example, there are a lot of situations where an enemy laner leaves the wave in a place where you can abuse it by either shoving it completely into a turret and making him lose CS, or freezing it, making him lose a couple of CS, then pushing it so that you're not too vulnerable.
Right.
Other than that, there isn't too many things really. The lane is moved a lot more towards just farming and trying to be safe until you get to the team fighting stage. Then you play around your team and just carry from the back line. That's how laning works right now.
Okay.
For the most part.
All right. So we're going to move into the questions that were asked by some of the community here. So we have Adri, who asks when to rotate.
When to rotate? I get asked that question a lot, actually. It, like everything in Vainglory, it's very situational. Like, you're going to hear me repeat that multiple times. But I would say rotating is about understanding if your jungle needs help. It's three things. If your jungle needs help, if you're rotating for an objective, or if you're rotating to shop. And the first one, which is rotating to help your jungle, just keep an eye on the minimap, keep an eye on your jungler whenever they need help. If the enemy team is pushing into him and you can rotate, you won't lose too much if you rotate to help him. Go for it. It helps you a lot in the long run, because if your jungle doesn't fall behind, then you're stronger as a team. And on the other side is if your jungle is pushing in and they need a little bit of help to get a kill, for an example, then definitely go for it. Get your jungle a little bit of a lead. They can snowball with it and so on. So that's one.
Right.
Two, we said rotating for objective. So like if your team is trying to do a gold mine, your team is trying to do a crystal miner, so on. Try to play with your team. Try to rotate when that is necessary. And I would say whenever rotating, definitely put the wave in an appropriate place before doing it. Sometimes it's not even worth rotating, because you put the wave in a really bad spot that you lose like 7 to 10 CS, which is a lot for a laner. And then the third situation is, we said, when you're trying to shop timings, like, could use an entire episode just explaining how much thinking goes into it right now, to be honest. Like, the players and the laners have really gotten extremely good at it. But I would say generally, like, the easiest thing I can tell you is, like, when you accumulate a lot of gold, try to shop. If you see an opportunity where you can shove the wave and then rotate to shop, like if you have a stronger matchup, or if the enemy laner is playing too passive, or if you have an extra person in lane, shove that wave into the turret and then use that time they're going to need to clear that wave to shop, so that you have an advantage on the enemy laner after you come back. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think that covers it.
Okay. The next question is from Akash Yangar. Like, how do I lane better as Vox? I consider myself pretty good, but I want to improve.
Vox is a lot about just, like, Vox is one of those characters that I keep referring to that can pressure the lane and shove it in really hard. So for the most part, it is about using your B or resonance and trying to get that wave shoved in. And also at the same time, if you can splash some damage on the enemy laner, that resonance damage actually does a lot. Like, it's surprisingly high for even a weapon power path. So trying to use that to your advantage can be very helpful. One problem that a lot of laners go into with Vox is getting ganked because of his short range. So pay extra attention to that. And other than that, it's again a lot less about how you lane with the character, more how you team fight with it. So like, if all you're doing in lane is just farming and getting your items, that's perfectly fine. What's gonna matter more is how you team fight with the character. And Vox is very very specific in how you need to team fight with him, because he has a short range. So like, you're gonna need to get close and then be ready to kite back, or it really is at that point going to be dependent on your comp and what you're trying to execute with your comp.
Okay. And the next question kind of ties into that a little bit. It's from Rogue Silhouette. He says, how do you think while positioning yourself during team fights as carry, and how do you pick your targets?
Positioning yourself, generally you always want to be behind your teammates. Definitely don't want to face check any bushes or be the first person to go into a team fight. As far as prioritizing your target is going to be more about what the team is trying to execute, and that also plays into how you want to position. So if the team is trying to execute a win condition where they just dive and kill a target like we talked earlier, then you're going to want to position yourself more aggressively, perhaps coming from the side, perhaps use your boost to get to that target faster. Don't worry about so many other things, like just focus on killing that person, as well as keeping yourself the safest possible doing it. And then if you have another win condition where you have like double carries with Lance, for an example, where that comp just wants to start the team fight, then start kiting back, then you want to position yourself far in the back, start hitting whoever is in front of you, and kite back accordingly. And that's kind of how it plays out. Like, recognize your win condition. That's going to give you the target you want to focus, and then that's also going to give you the position you want to execute in a team fight.
Okay. All right, the next question is, if Baron is banned, who is the best laner to play against Vox?
Vox right now is extremely annoying in the lane. There's like, he's good against almost everything because they nerfed Gwen. Gwen used to be really good against him because she could burst him when he got close because of his short range. But now Gwen is a little bit weaker, so it doesn't quite work as effectively. I actually, some of the counters to Vox are melee laners like Jewel and Idris and Glaive. That's why you see them right now rising in popularity, because of how popular Vox is right now in the meta. So like, you see a lot of Glaive picks, a lot of Idris picks. And the reason why they're good against Vox is because his range is short, so like he needs to get close to you, and that's perfect for a melee character because then you can get close to him.
Okay.
So that's kind of what there is right now out there. I think Ringo is still pretty effective against Vox, but Ringo is hard to play in general. I think Gwen can still work. Kestrel is not bad. Adagio is pretty good into him too because you can outrage him, so on.
Okay. And the next question is from Henry Wong. How often do you, Iraqizorro, stay in the lane?
How often do I stay in the lane? In my competitive matches, I recognize a lot that I stay away from the lane too much, actually. I tend to prioritize rotating more and helping my team, which sometimes put me in really awkward situations where I'm really far behind in CS. But in general, I don't think I stay away from lane too much because as a laner, again, throughout the early and mid game, what you really want to focus on, sure, help your team, like do objectives when necessary, or when the opportunity is present, but you definitely also want to focus on your CS and on getting those items so that you can carry in the team first.
Okay. And this is the very last question. It is from Mark Berger. He says, how do you not get tilted after losing, or after losses, and how do you stay cool after winning a bunch in a row? He also puts Gangsters OP.
Thanks. Tilting, it's all about your mentality, really, going into the game in the first place. If you're understanding you're just playing to either one, have fun, or two, just improve, you're not like, don't get too invested into winning or losing because that never works out well. Either get invested or be invested into having fun or just generally improving. And if you're doing the latter, which is what most people do, then just focus on that. If you're doing well, that's all that matters. If you're not doing well, try to recognize your mistakes, try to recover from them and improve on them, and just focus on yourself. Don't focus on your teammates, what they're doing badly, what they could be doing better, because that generally puts you in that tilt situation because you're just mad at how they're performing. So focus on yourself. And if you do get tilted, I would say the easiest way to get out of it is just take a break, like 10-15 minutes, go eat something, go talk to your family or walk it off, whatever you want to do. But take a small break and then you can come back afterwards. As far as keeping your cool after winning a streak of games, I'm not sure what you mean. Like, do you get cocky after winning a few games?
Yeah, I think they maybe get in over their head and like, start to throw.
I mean,
maybe.
If you're doing the same thing, which is to just improve and continue focusing on getting as a better as a player, then you shouldn't have a problem with that either, because each game there is something you're making or doing wrong. No matter how decisively you're winning, there's something you're doing wrong. So just try to always recognize it and try to work on improving on it.
All right, well, that was the last question. I appreciate you coming out here today, answering these questions for myself as well as all the viewers here today on my channel. Is there anything that you want to share as far as maybe like your social media or whatever?
No problem. I mean, I'm on Twitter. That's my main social media channel, and I'm also on Mobcrush. My Twitter is @ELDON Iraqizorro. And my Mobcrush is just mobcrush.com/Iraqizorro. Always tweeting, always streaming. So hope to see you guys there.
Awesome. And again, I'll put those links in the description down below for you guys to access. And again, thank you for coming out, Iraqizorro. I really appreciate it. It is an honor. I've never really talked to you personally, but this is the first time, so I'm still a little bit nervous, kind of fanboying right now. But I appreciate you coming out, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. I will be trying to get the next episode as soon as possible, and I will see you guys next time. Later!